What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Knife Show, where we dissect the human psyche and society. My name is Denzel Mensa. I'm an ENFJ.
My name is Joyce Ming, and I'm an INFJ. And we're here today to talk about, is there really such a thing as good and bad people? Or is that more of a social construct? This is going to be a controversial episode today because a lot of people talk about good or bad. Or in life in general, you hear a lot of people being labeled as evil, horrible people. And usually the people who are in our group are the good people and vice versa. And we're going to look at that concept from a different angle today. I've been really interested in this topic because it's something that has been discussed recently by a lot of people. Someone I'll pinpoint right now is Christian Rivera, and he's an INTP in the type space. And he made the claim that there's no such thing as good and bad people. There just is terrified, rigid people and joyful, adaptable people. And I think that there's truth to this because sometimes what we see as bad is really just fearful behavior, and it comes from a place of survival or narrow-mindedness rather than being inherently bad of itself. You'll even have controversial thoughts around Nazis and why they were born and if they're truly evil as well. And you'll have certain people arguing that Nazis are not evil, they are just not self-aware. And a lack of self-awareness causes behaviors that look evil. And so when we don't reflect on the things that we do, when we don't question them, the lack of questioning itself can lead to potential evil or stuff that appears evil. But can anything be intrinsically evil? Is there ever an inherent evil quality to someone as a human being? And that is something that's worth exploring. On the other hand, Christian talks about how joyful and adaptable people are what people subscribe as possibly good people. And I would see, yeah, there's some truth to that. If someone is open-minded, that allows them to question their viewpoint so they don't get sucked into their one way of seeing things, that if they're wrong, they will go the wrong way and they will go the long way with that belief. And that could justify a lot of their behaviors because we can do anything as long as we justify it. And so I've seen cases of where friends will treat their ex-friends or ex-lovers horribly, take their car, their house, their kids, in terms of them being mates. And then you'll see wives usually do it, but a male I could see a husband doing this to a wife too. But I usually see wives, when they get divorced with their husbands and it's a messy divorce, sometimes they'll take everything that the man owns. Because women tend to win custody battles with kids because there's a little bit of a favoring there. And I'm like, how could you treat someone that you used to love so preciously like such trash? And that always boggled my mind. Because I'm like, for me, if you've been in my inner circle, I will not do that to you because I know your heart, I know your totality as a person, so I could never devalue you enough in my mind to treat you horribly like that. Whereas I actually find the more someone can justify bad action, the more that they could potentially do bad onto you. So someone looking at that wife steal the children, the house, the car away from the man could see that wife as evil. But it is actually them not being self-reflective of what they're doing, and they're just acting out of the pain they feel. They're acting out of the justification they feel around mistreatment. And to get back at that person for treating you poorly, you try to go even deeper down. I don't know, it's like an eye for an eye. And so if we justify that someone has poked our eye out, then we could do evil things to the person who we think has done evil things to us. And so we think we're not being evil because we're just getting comeuppance. But then it's the moral dilemma. It might not look evil in your eyes, but it might actually to someone outside the situation, you're like, "Ooh, that was really mean."
Mm,
Like, for the wife doing that to the husband, she probably feels not bad for it and doesn't really blink, or she can go to bed at night and not think about it twice.
mm,
She's like, "This was what was meant to be. This is what's fair." And so I really think evil is being able to justify your actions, and you're able to go really far in that justification without challenging it. But
mm.
what are your thoughts, Denzel? And audience members, if you have a different viewpoint or if you agree with us, feel free to expand in the comments section.
Yeah. We really like the discussions with all of this. So this is meant to be us just opening up the discussion, not necessarily saying this is what it is. So all of that being said, yeah, that's all very. Those are all very interesting takes. Um, for me, I think first of all, it's very interesting for me now coming out from a Christian worldview. And I just recently put that out on my channel. But, for those who hadn't seen it yet, surprise. But some of y'all might not be, if y'all really followed me like closely. Yeah, I went through a deconstruction process with my faith and everything. And finally, with a lot of tearing and everything like that, I came to the point where it's just like, yeah, no, I see the value in Christianity and Christian faith, and I actually believe that a lot of people are meant to be Christians right now. Like I believe that I still believe in God. I still believe that God has a divine order that he goes about, and like it's his way of keeping harmony and balance in the world by having people remain in the faith. Others are agnostic, others are atheists, others are Buddhists, others are all of these different flavors. They bring different things to the world, which allows the world to be what it is. And I think that it was my time was up for being in the faith. It doesn't make me better than those who are in the faith, and it doesn't make me worse than those who are in the faith. Just different. I'm in a different space now, but I still hold respect for everybody who's having their own place in the ecosystem, in the balance of things. And that being said, that also includes people who we would consider evil. So, from pulling out of the Christian faith and everything, it allowed me to. I used to have this Venn diagram in my head. It would be kind of like, all right, on this side is everything that God says is wrong, according to the Bible. And then on this side is everything that I personally think is wrong, just according to my own beliefs. And then in the middle of the Venn diagram are the things that both me and God think that is wrong, again, according to like the Bible and my beliefs and everything like that. And as I pulled away from the Christian faith and everything, then, I personally do not, I believe there's a lot of value and spiritual um, depth to the Bible, but I do not believe in its inerrancy anymore, which pretty much means that I don't believe that it's like the end all be all and it's infallible and, like how a lot of Christians do. And that's not like I'm only stating this so that I can further explain. I'm getting to a point with all of this. Anyway, so from having pulled away from that, I've been able to now reconstruct this Venn diagram. And first of all, I don't even really believe that this side that I had for God is everything that actually what I thought it was. So personally, as of right now, I don't personally believe in sin. And that has allowed me to also be like, okay, so now I go over to my side of the Venn diagram. I'm like, all right, I think that I identify as an amoral person, not to be confused with immoral. Amoral just pretty much means, at least from my ideology, that I do not have what we would call an objective view on morality. So I have my own moral views on things, but I no longer think that this is what everybody needs to be following because I understand that, well, since the moral views are coming mainly from my own experiences and my own logic, my own values, etc., then yeah, I personally believe that it's immoral to kill somebody in cold blood. You know what I'm saying? But I understand that's just me. And from having learned more throughout life and experiencing so many different things, I've just been constantly realizing how different situations call for different things. Somebody might think like it is completely immoral to lie and all of that. But then, you think about, okay, what about the people who lied and said, oh no, slaves are not upstairs hiding from these slave owners that came to knock on my door asking if I have any slaves that I'm hiding and stuff like that. Like, what do you do? Do you be like, yes, because you have to tell the truth and the truth will set you free? In this case, the truth is actually going to get you right back with your slave owners. That is not freedom. But that's also not to necessarily justify it, because I also think that there's a difference between justifying something versus just explaining what it is. I have done plenty of things where I have a rationale for it, like, hey, this was my math behind why I came to this conclusion. But that's not like, to me, if I were to justify it, then I would be saying, so I was right in doing this. Like, yeah, I stole your Twinkie, but I had to do it, or I'm not in the wrong for it, or I didn't do anything wrong because XYZ. But that's a justification in my mind. A rationalization is, well, yeah, I stole your Twinkie because in my head, XYZ, and this is how it made sense to me. I'm not saying that it's right. I'm not saying necessarily that it's wrong, or maybe I am saying that it's wrong, but this is my reasoning behind it. And I think that sometimes those two things can get conflated. So the idea of evil not being a thing, there being no such thing as evil people, in my mind, I subjectively believe that there are such things as evil people, but I believe that they are they help hold balance. It's kind of like the yin yang, where it's like you need lightness in order for darkness to also, be there. You need darkness in order for light to also be there. You wouldn't have heroes if you didn't have villains. So there's certain things, but these evil people, they all have stories behind them. Very rarely, in my opinion, do you have people who are just quote unquote evil because they didn't go through their own stuff to then get to a point where they are. And that's why, I personally believe that whether they're evil or not, you still show compassion, you still show love, because love is the most powerful thing in the universe, in my opinion. And love is the only thing that'll eradicate evil in itself, which, then that means light is what will eradicate darkness. And so, or yeah, like, or swallow up darkness in a way. To address what you said so far, Joyce, with all of that uh backstory, um yeah, I do believe that there are evil people in the world, like people who do wrong, and yeah, that people who like do wrong, but I also recognize that it's my idea of wrong. And on top of that, even though there are people who do wrong and are quote unquote evil, that doesn't mean necessarily that they are beyond redemption, and it also doesn't mean that they just were born evil and all of that. There was always like a path that they had followed, and yeah, maybe it was just fear. Maybe it was just, the other thing that you said that Christian had said. Um,
Adaptability.
yeah, adaptability. Like, s- I when I think of the most evil things, I think of rape and pedophilia. It personally, those are the two things that like just come up. I'm like, oh my gosh, that is not okay. But and again, this is not to justify it, as in like I would never say that those things are okay, that those things are good. I would always say those things are bad. But my rationalization is, well, if somebody has experienced certain things that caused them to now only be attracted to younger children or whatever like that, or if they've been raped many times, like whatever things that lead to them psychologically, that like hurt people, we always hear it. Some things led them to then do these things to those kids, those innocent kids, or to the victims that they raped and everything like that. And that's not okay. but yeah, they some things led to that. And even though I would still consider that person to be an evil person because they're doing evil, uh, it's like I still also understand that something led them, most likely led them there. Um, and I think that this is where it's kind of like getting muddy as I'm trying to articulate it, but hopefully I'm making sense. I feel like Joyce, you probably are picking up what I'm saying, but you can go ahead and say what you might have to say to that.
Yeah. I wonder if evil is a lack of creativity. So they can't find the third solution, the creative option, so that they do all these horrible things because they're like, this is the only way I see justice being rectified. It's
Mm,
like with Hitler, he was like, the only way to make the world good is to make it only blue-eyed, blonde-haired people. So
mm,
he just lacked creativity with a alternative solution. So he chose this really messed up solution in our eyes. So I do think that there's evil subjectively. Like there are things that I would call evil, like the things that you talked about,
mhm.
Denzel. It makes me wonder, does an evil action create an evil person? Like we can all agree that that action was evil, but
Right.
does that define the person? And
No.
how much do our actions define us?
Right.
Um, like Alan Watts, he'll talk about the isness of people. Like
Mhm.
we're not really an action we do. So we shouldn't say that I'm a rock climber. You should just say I am a person who climbs rocks. So
Mm,
it's just like this is a moment in your timeline, but is it you? What
mhm.
is really you? So this is like a philosophical pondering. What is really you?
Right. Right.
I guess what makes me question the objectiveness of morality is that I'll talk to people, I'll hear their side of the story, and I'm like, that is actually evil. I'll actually think that it by anyone's measure who's hearing it outside of their mind, it sounds
Mhm.
evil. But
Yeah.
to them, they think that they're being moral. And I don't have the like some I'll try to let them know, but it's like, how do you convince someone who thinks that they're good, but is really like being the Hitler who is like killing children that
Right.
they're bad?
Yeah.
Because in their frame of mind, everyone else is bad. So
Right.
like if you were in Hitler's perspective, he's like, you know what? Everyone else is evil. I am the good one. And
Mm,
then is this like an obsessive level of stubbornness? What is this that makes up this man who's not able to see that he's hurting people? It's
right.
almost like what you were saying, hurt people, but then
Mm,
they're blind to the fact that they're hurting people now. It's
yes.
like they're desensitized to suffering, they're desensitized to maliciousness. It's almost they can justify it. That's why they don't feel it when they do something horrible to someone.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's almost like some people can justify crushing souls for the sake of a bigger mission. It's like the means justify the ends. Are people who are able to do evil, they just have an ends that they're like any means can justify it. So they
Mm,
just go for it. But they believe that their ends is good. So it's like everyone just suck it up. Oh, is it a little bit of a complex, but the dark side of a god complex within everyone? And I'm not relating it back to you because I know that you coined the word god complex for yourself, but I mean it in a different context.
mhm.
So if
Yeah.
you were to think about how everyone has the idea of how everyone should be treating each other. So we all have an idea of how the world should be. And so if
Mhm.
we kind of assume that we should impose that on the world, that if it's evil, then it can cause a lot of problem. But even like, what is evil though? So it's kind of like Death Note. The
Mhm.
main character has a
Right.
god
Like
complex.
Yagami. Yeah.
Yeah. So he thinks that he's doing the right thing by killing criminals. And some people would say that that's a good thing. And some people would say that that's a horrible thing. Can we dehumanize other people because that they have wronged? Like if someone has done something we deem as evil, are they forever branded evil? Like I believe in the US prison system there was a concept of three strikes and you're out. So I
Mm.
think you're sent to jail for life if you've gone to jail three times. I could be wrong about that. I'm not someone
No, I
who's
don't know. Shoot. Yeah, I haven't looked
yeah.
at that, but that. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I think it was a long time ago. I might be getting the facts wrong too. But the overall concept is this evil or is this good? Because some people think that they're being a good person by condemning people to jail for life. These people are evil, so they deserve the consequence. Whereas you could see the three strikes and you're out as evil because you're actually stripping someone of their humanity for their entire life. Some of these offenders are people who have done minor offenses that didn't hurt anyone.
Mm,
There is such a fine line between good and evil in some ambiguous cases that it makes you question, man, what is morality? So there are some situations that will send you into existential crises because you realize that the evil person has a good intention.
mm,
And so then what do you do then? It's like, okay, you're this part of you, I agreed with you with a good intention. And then at that point, you had some really demented reasoning, and then you totally did a right turn there, and then that's when I'm not following you.
yeah,
But there's a lot of empathy you can actually have for sinister motives or sinister people
yeah,
because they're so blinded by their pain, it takes away their creativity, which is why I'm like, is evil really a lack of creativity because they just can't find a better option?
yeah. I mean, I think not in an insulting way, because I know that you are incredibly deep and you are very intelligent. And I think that you would agree with me when I say that that's a very simple way of putting it. Like, oh, is evil just a lack of creativity? Because then, somebody could think, well, so since I'm not a creative person, and that is Joyce saying that I'm evil, which I'm pretty certain that Joyce would not say that you're evil because you lack creativity. But what Joyce is actually saying, if I'm understanding correctly, is that just like what I was talking about, like somebody who has who has pedophilic impulses of some sort. There's a lot of people. There's actually a word. I think that Joyce taught me the word. Well, I don't remember it at the moment, but there's a word for people who have pedophilic thoughts.
Minor attracted people.
Yeah,
Max.
yeah, yes, yeah, yeah. There it is. Yeah, and it's like they're all around us, but you would never know because they're restricting it and they're holding it back all the time and everything like that. And it's like, okay, so is that person evil, or are they evil because they've slipped into that temptation one time, or are they evil because they've slipped into it several times, but every time that they slipped into it, then they felt bad, or are they actually evil when they do it that one time and they have no remorse? Or are they evil when they do it several times and they have no remorse? It's like maybe somebody could be like, well, there's a spectrum. Or maybe somebody could be like, no, it's just that last one where it's like when you have like no remorse and stuff like that. But then it's like, well, but then in their head, what if they rationalized it and they're like, yeah, no, like this is fine. Or if they're like, yeah, no, I know it's wrong, but I don't care. So now it's like there's so many different categories. And personally, from my own subjective, thinking, I'm most prone to think that the most evil people are those who they haven't even justified it. They're just like, yeah, no, I know it's wrong to kill people. I know it's wrong to rape. I know it's wrong to steal. I know it's wrong to lie. But I don't care. And they just do it anyway. I'm like, okay, that's evil in my subjective opinion. Now, because I used to have such a very rigid, I guess, view of like what good and evil was. Like I grew up really strongly believing, like, dang, like I have nothing against homosexual people. I really don't. But God from the Bible says that, people, even if they're born gay and all of that, that's why they need to be born again and they need to turn away from that sin and stuff like that. So, and I felt like, yeah, I don't have anything against gay people, but I do believe that their lifestyle is wrong when I was back in the Christian faith. And then now I've come to a point where I'm like, personally, I don't think that God cares about that. I don't think that these are things that God actually focuses on. And if you're a Bible believing Christian, then yes, I see why you would think so, and that's fine. Believe it or not, we need people like you in the world. But I am not under that thought anymore. And so now it's like, yeah, if somebody's like gay or whatever, like, okay, yeah, do whatever you want. That's not me, but you can do whatever. But because I thought so much, like people who are very promiscuous and have sex before marriage, stuff like that was something that I just knew, like, wrong. That's not good. It doesn't mean that whoever did it is evil, but because they're tempted in that way. But I just knew like that is wrong, and now I'm at a place where I'm like, oh, I actually don't think that's wrong at all anymore. And there's so many things I used to think like, man, I used to be so strongly believing that this is wrong, and now I don't believe it anymore. So now it's like, you know what? I'm gonna have my own subjective views of what morality is, but they're always gonna be open. They're always gonna be like loose or whatever like that, which could scare a lot of people because then they'd be like, oh, then you're just gonna permit everything. And it's just like not really. It's more of just being open and learning like what the nuances of life is, and every person's different situation. I think it was Charles Manson. I don't know too much. I don't remember too much about his story, but I remember when I looked into that story, it's like, dang, this guy is evil. Like he seemed to have like no remorse for any of the stuff that he was doing to the point where when he was approached about it, then he started to laugh, if I remember correctly. Like he was just laughing about like all of the killings that he was orchestrating and stuff like that. Like, and it almost reminded me of the Joker. Like, wow, like you really don't care. Now there's different iterations of the Joker, if I remember correctly. So before somebody's like, well, the Joker has a philosophy. Yeah, I've heard about that. But there's also an iteration of the Joker that's just like, no, I know, I just like doing bad things. Like there's a character from the Boondocks called Lamilton. And if anybody's ever like watched that show, like he takes his 8-year-old friend, they're both 8 years old. And Lamilton is like, yeah, I like smoking cigarettes, and he's driving a car with his friend Riley Freeman, and they are smoking, and they are like he beat up his grandmother because she and this is based on a true story actually, so it's kind of crazy. But like the kid beat up his grandma and had no remorse about it, and he said, yeah, because she didn't buy me chicken, and I didn't like that she didn't buy me chicken, so I beat her ass. Whoa, like now are we gonna be like, well, he's a kid, he doesn't know better? Like, I don't know. Like there's so much nuance to go into all of this that like to me, I don't feel comfortable just being like, oh yeah, this person's evil. This person is good. And it reminds me of the show Attack on Titan. And on Attack on Titan, we have Armin Artlet, and he said something in the show. He was talking to Annie, and he said, "I don't like the terms good person or bad person because it's impossible to be entirely good to everyone or entirely bad to everyone. To some, you are a good person, while to others, you are a bad person." And then but then as he continued to talk to her, he said to Annie, because he was requesting something from Annie, and this isn't really like a spoiler, but he was like, but I will say that if you refuse to do this, in my eyes, you are a bad person. So even though he doesn't like using that term, which I would then say that Armin is also an amoral person, but because he doesn't really believe in the objective good versus bad, but he's like, but I still have a view. I understand that I could have the wrong view, but I can't help that I believe that what you're doing right now is bad. It's immoral. And so I want you to know that from my subjective thoughts, that I'm aware that it's subjective, because some people believe that they have objective views on morality. It's like my subjective thoughts. What you're doing is immoral. It's bad, and like that's I really relate to that. So to me, I have people who I really understand where they're coming from with certain things. I think also that's where shadow work comes in too. Like on my channel, I've done a video on shadow work and everything. And that's something that's, a constant process. And shoot, I will be the first to admit that I have done evil actions. I have done things that I'm not proud of. And, I look at myself and I'm like, where is this rooted from? Like, what caused this? Was I not creative enough to think of another avenue? So therefore, I saw it as like these are the only two things that I had. My when I first became a Christian, then my mentor at the time, he was somebody who he's a very kind ESFJ guy, and I remember a few years later when Hillary and Donald Trump were trying to like run for president and stuff. And I was telling this mentor of mine, I was like, man, people keep on asking me like, who am I gonna vote for? And like, I don't really know because Donald Trump like has these issues, but he has like Christian values that I feel like God would want me to go with. But then Hillary, she has these things, but then she's supporting like homosexuality, and I don't think that God will approve of that. So I don't really know. And then my mentor was like, and he speaks in a very wise way, and it was wise at the time, and it could still be wise in its own way. But what he said was, you know what I tell people when they ask me, I'm like, help me pick one between Hitler or the devil. I'm like, oh, okay. And pretty much his thing was, you like both sides are evil in their own right. And it doesn't matter which one is more evil, you're still going to be choosing evil. So he pretty much chose to opt out and just not make a decision. I'm not saying he made the right decision by not making a decision, but him saying that Hitler versus the devil thing really stuck with me because it helped me realize like how frequently, just like Joyce said, we may lack creativity in the sense like, hmm, what's a loophole through this, or is there? Am I sure these are the only two options? Because sometimes the times that I've done what I would consider personally to be an evil or bad or immoral act, I swear I looked at the situation and I at least felt from my limited mind that I'm between these two choices, maybe even these three choices, and I chose the one that was the least evil that I could think of. And it's like, man, even though y'all are pressing me for doing this, if y'all knew the full context, if y'all knew how frequently I battled every day against this, or if y'all knew like how long I took to really deliberate through this, if y'all knew the choices that I had, like, oh dang, you know what? Yeah, you're still kind of bad, but I didn't know that those are the only choices, that the only options that you had. So then from doing shadow work and looking at yourself, you're able to then look at somebody else, like, you know what? I wonder how much this person thought that these are the only options at their disposal. I don't know. So therefore, I can't really fully judge from what I see so far. Yeah, I can say to myself, like, man, that's kind of evil, or that person is not doing good things, or that person is just not a good person, whatever. But I wonder what really is going on through their head. And this has only pushed me further and further to hold space for people, to approach them with grace, to do the same thing for myself, and really try to have the belief that everybody's doing the best they can with what they know, with what they currently understand. In fact, funny enough, just came to mind at the time of me and Joyce recording this, just less than an hour ago, Joyce retweeted something from Naval. I like the Naval page. And I also retweeted it. And it says, you're always making the best choice based on your current understanding. Don't try to change the choice, change the understanding. So even those of us who have these views, like when I viewed like, oh, homosexuality is just evil, or like whatever, like I don't know, whatever it could have been, that was my understanding at the time. Now I have a different understanding. Who knows what my understanding will be 10 years from now? I'm going to be 29 on Friday. I don't know what this upcoming year is going to hold. Already this year has already been giving me like so much. So it's like all from that understanding of how things have been so far, all I can really do is just have a humble mindset and be like, man, I don't know objectively anything except maybe that I'm always learning something new about the world. Whenever I think I have the world figured out, like, yeah, this is evil. I always knew that fornication was evil. I always knew this was evil. I learned something. I'm like, I would have never thought that I'd be here actually seeing situations where this is not evil. Hmm, what else don't I know? And let me just back up and actually like observe situations a lot more. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I relate a lot to Armin. I have the exact same mentality as him. And so I guess I am amoral too because I don't believe in objective morality because I can see how my morality differs so much from everyone else's. It's just because I think the introverted intuition or just being an intuitive in general, I can shift my mindset to understand how someone else is viewing it and I can see it as valid too. The thing is, you can really become an amoral person when you've been around someone who's borderline. I think that really amplifies it because borderline personality disorder, people who have it tend to have a very strong set of morality. And I can see how flawed it is and then how different it is from other people's morality. And it just makes me question morality as a whole and if it means anything truly in the grand scheme of things. Like, I'll give you an example. My last conversation with my borderline friend before they door slammed me was this. I was running late, and so I knew I was going to be late to the hangout. So I told him, "Hey, I'm going to be 15 minutes late. Just giving you a heads up because I had a client beforehand and I don't want to waste your time. And so I just want to make sure you know so that you can do something while waiting for me rather than just sitting there and then hoping that I'll be there on time. I'm just setting your expectations so that you'll be okay and that you don't have to wait on me." And then they were like, "No, that is the most immoral thing I've ever had anyone do to me. It's like, how could you tell me to wait 15 minutes for you?" And it's like, that you should just come late and just make me wait. And then that's the most moral thing. And then
He's
I'm
had
like,
a very great life if that's the most immoral thing that somebody's ever done to him. Wow.
yeah, that was the straw that broke the camel's back. And I was like, man, we should not be friends if you think morality is me just coming late and not letting you know and making you wait for that long. Like, that to me would piss me off. If I had a friend who was an hour late and just didn't tell me they're going to be an hour late and made me wait, I'm like, all that time I could have spent doing something else.
Right.
If you just told
Me and
me.
Joyce are busy people. There's a reason why we only get to do these knife show episodes every once in a while. Like, so
Yeah, and so when you have people that are that emotionally volatile and also so morally principled, it makes you question morality as a whole. You're like, that was so arbitrary. I wonder how many other things in life are arbitrary. And also, there's a part of the NI perspective shifting that makes you wonder, do I ever do anything that's like this on a low grade level? Because it's just, you always like to check yourself so you don't wreck yourself. It's not that you do it, it's just that you want to make sure you don't do it because I don't think a lot of people who do it know that they do it. So I could be someone who doesn't know that they do it, but I do it. But I think possibly one of the markings of a person who is moral, ironically, is a person who questions themselves. They do something and they have this self awareness to look at it from different angles. So, in a way, if you question your morality, you might actually be a more moral person if morality exists.
yeah, no, I agree. And I think also that same person gives themselves grace and gives others grace because they understand the complexity of it. Because there are people who question their morality, but then they also jump on a moral high horse and they're like, yeah, because I question my morality all the time, and I know that like you guys are sick because you watch porn. Like you guys are sick because I don't know, whatever it might be. And it's like, well, that doesn't automatically make that person a moral person. In my subjective opinion, I think that somebody, to me, an indicator of somebody who's like really like a moral person is, yes, like you said, like someone who's like always self-assessing and always checking their motivations, but then also giving themselves grace, not in like a oh well, kind of way, but kind of like really like processing and thinking through whenever they do something that's out of alignment, and then holding the same space for other people so that they can like, they're just walking with love and light. I guess that's kind of like how I see it. Like when you really are moving like with a sense of morality, then there's a certain level of love and light that kind of like radiates from you that darkness is not able to penetrate, because once it comes into your sphere of influence, when it comes into your circle, then it's immediately nullified. And so I think that that's kind of how I see such a person. And it's something that's constantly always growing. It's something that I also think you have to keep healthy in a way. You don't just remain that like you arrived. It's like something it's a practice every day, because we live in a world where it veers you toward immorality in a way. If you aren't careful, so many bad things, and all these terms, bad, immorality, but like so many bad things can happen to you. And then you just adopt the mindset that makes you start to act in ways that are not in love, that are not in light. Um, but sometimes, like if you're really like evaluating that way, those bad things actually lead a lot of people to thinking more contemplatively or analytically about the world, and that leads to a lot better things.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I just watched Attack on Titan with Jamila for the second time. It was Jamila's first time watching all the way through. It was my second time watching all the way through, although I've watched the first few seasons a few times. And I just constantly said throughout the whole thing, like, yeah, Armin reminds me so much of Joyce, like more than any, I was going to say more than any other fictional character, but I think the two fictional characters that most always remind me of you, Joyce, are Armin for sure, and Musica from the Promised Neverland manga. She reminds me a lot of you as well. So yeah, it's interesting that you said that. Yeah, you relate to Armin, because yeah, I definitely see Armin with you, and he
Yeah.
was me and Jamila's like favorite character.
Oh, I appreciate it. That's very flattering. I wonder if a part of morality too is also humility. Because what you mentioned is someone can self doubt a lot, but if they don't have humility, they can still blame other people for not being as great as they are. But when you have self doubt, for some people it comes with humility too, and you're like, oh, you know what? I'm just as human as the other person, so I don't know if I'm better than them in any sort of way. And so if you have true humility, it's hard to be actually evil, because you you don't think you're better than other people
Mm, yeah.
intrinsic.
Yeah. And that's my subjective opinion, of course. If somebody disagrees with that, that's cool. You totally have the right to think whatever you want, but this is all just food for thought. But yeah, fully agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
So
are oh yeah,
go ahead.
you continue.
No, I just want to hear what you can say.
Yeah, and sometimes like, and so if audience members, you notice that I reduce things a lot. So I'll say something that sounds like an incredibly simple statement. And so I can sometimes look like I overgeneralize a statement. Like I'll say stuff like, um, is evil truly a lack of creativity? Or I just said something that was like, oh, does humility, can it make you a good person given if good people exist?
Right. Right.
I can look like I oversimplify things all the time. And I wonder if it's my NI or TI or both of them working together. It's like you're trying to find the crux of something, the heart of something. So I'm trying to find like what is the root statement of it. So by doing that, I might actually bastardize things by making it too simple. So I just wanted to acknowledge if anyone it got rubbed the wrong way because of the way that I speak. I apologize.
Right. I mean, we've definitely stepped on toes with this one, but that's okay. Hopefully, it provokes discussion, and we all will continue to learn from this. So we would love to hear y'all's thoughts. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Thank you for still rocking with us. If you're watching this, we know that it's been a while since there's lots of like gaps in between our videos and everything. We want to make quality content. And that means that we want to make sure that we have quality topics as well as quality time. And so there's just a lot of different like things that have come up with that, but we will continue to be dropping these whenever we can. If you have any other topics that you would like for us to explore, be sure to leave them in the comments below. Hit us up in the email.
So if you enjoyed this video, feel free to also check out Denzel and I's coaching services and our typing services. It helps support us wildly. So
And until next time,
stay sharp.
また夜が明ければお別れ夢は時まぼ 星に